just now into CNN, and this coming from the White House. New sanctions announced in response to this move by Russia. CNN White House correspondent Jeremy Diamond joins us now. Jeremy, walk us through some of these steps and what they mean exactly.
Yeah, Jim, the White House had pledged a swift and severe response to this annexation effort by the Russian president, and that is exactly what we are seeing now. The United States rejecting this annexation move by the Russian president and issuing a series of severe sanctions against Russian officials, their family members, and also targeting, crucially, Russia's defense sector and providers of weaponry and other supplies to that defense sector that are based in other countries. A list of them goes from beginning with the Treasury Department sanctioning the head of Russia's central bank, Elvira Nabiullina. The Treasury and State Department are also sanctioning relatives of members of Russia's National Security Council, including the wife of Russia's prime minister and his 2 adult children. There are visa restrictions on Ochur Suge-Mongush, who is a Russian national who's been accused of torturing Ukrainian prisoners of war. 14 international suppliers of Russian military hardware are being sanctioned here, and also the Department of Commerce adding 57 new entities to its list for export controls. We've also just gotten a statement, Jim, from President Biden, who says that he condemns Russia's fraudulent attempt to annex sovereign territory. He says that this is a violation of international law, trampling on the United Nations Charter, and shows, quote, contempt for peaceful nations everywhere. And this is the crucial line from his statement where he says, make no mistake, these actions have no legitimacy. And he says that the U.S. will always honor Ukraine's internationally recognized borders. He also pledges to continue supporting and arming Ukraine's military. All of this is notable, of course, Jim, because President Putin is drawing a harder line and raising the specter, of course, of the potential use of nuclear weapons. We heard him today saying that Russia will defend at all costs its territory, which he believes now includes these 4 Ukrainian regions which he is annexing, and he has said that it is not a bluff, that he will defend Russian territory at all costs using all means. Of course, this is heightening the tensions in the region, and we are seeing, of course, a strong U.S. response to these moves.
Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, he is reacting to speaking about Russia's illegal annexation of parts of Ukraine. Let's listen in.
We'll never recognize any of the Kremlin's claims to sovereignty over parts of Ukraine that it seized by force and now purports to incorporate into Russia. As I said last week at the United Nations Security Council, this territory is and will remain Ukrainian, and Ukraine has every right to defend its land, to defend its people, and to take back the territory that Russia has seized from it. Canada and the United States, like so many nations around the world, see eye to eye on this. These are just the latest in a long line of actions by Russia since it launched its war of aggression against Ukraine that violate international law, that flout the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity, which underpin the entire international order so necessary to keeping peace and security around the world. And all of this shows the Kremlin's utter contempt for the rights and the will of the Ukrainian people. I also made clear that when Russia made this move, the United States and our allies and partners would impose swift and severe costs on individuals and entities inside and outside of Russia that provide political or economic support to illegal attempts to change the status of Ukrainian territory. Today, we've done just that in coordination with the European Union, and Canada is taking similar steps as well. We're also issuing a clear warning supported by G7 leaders. We will hold to account any individual, entity, or country that provides political or economic support for President Putin's illegal attempts to change the status of Ukrainian territory. In support of this commitment, the Departments of the Treasury and Commerce are releasing new guidance on heightened sanctions and export control risks for entities and individuals inside and outside of Russia that support in any way the Kremlin's sham referenda, purported annexation, and occupation of parts of Ukraine. We're also taking action today at the United Nations Security Council to hold Russia accountable for the sham referenda and the purported annexations. If Russia blocks the Security Council from carrying out its responsibilities, we'll ask the UN General Assembly, where every country has a vote to make clear that it's unacceptable to redraw borders by force. Every country has a stake in condemning these steps. As UN Secretary General Guterres said this week, and I quote, "The United Nations Charter is clear. Any annexation of a state's territory by another state resulting from the threat or use of force is a violation of the principles of the United Nations Charter and international law." The United States, Canada, and our other allies and partners will continue to assist Ukraine in the fight to defend its territory against Russian aggression. With new security assistance that we announced just this week, the United States has now committed approximately $16.9 billion in security assistance to Ukraine going back to January 2021. In our meeting, the Foreign Minister and I discussed ways to continue supporting Ukraine and our European allies as they prepare for a difficult winter ahead. Our commitment to Ukraine's sovereignty, its independence, its territorial integrity is steadfast. The United States and Canada will also continue to work together at the G7 to help the populations hardest hit by President Putin's war of choice, including by getting life-saving aid to the people most affected by the unprecedented global food crisis. And we'll continue to make crystal clear that we and our NATO allies are prepared to defend every inch of NATO territory.